What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland, being joined by Tommy Marquez. Tommy, what's up?
Oh, not much, just doing yard
Okay.
work.
Another day. Yeah, you and I both, I think we're doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. So, and Tommy and I have been left unsupervised today. Lauren is Idaho, the great state of Idaho, I
Yeah.
believe, and their famous potatoes, doing some, I think she's doing some hiking right now.
Mhm.
So it's just me and Tommy flying solo. But yes, Tommy and I were both out doing various work on our property. I was clearing brush, like pulling just stuff out of the ground.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's nothing quite like finishing up that. I think we were just talking about it. You
Mhm.
you finish up, you have an ice cold drink, and you just kind of,
Yeah, I did. I looked, and that's the thing because what's cool about it is when projects like that, when you're clearing, you can see a major difference. And for us, it's about fire safety and clearing, having a defensible space around your property or your
yep.
house. So I had to yank all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And you know what I did? It's like I've never done this before, but this is gonna be my new thing. I went and I grabbed a frosty froth wagon
Hmm.
or a frothy frost wagon. I don't know which one it is.
Actually, both work. Now that I think about it.
And I sat up on my roof and I drank it and I just sat there on my roof,
Mm.
just looking out. Dog came and joined me.
Oh, that's the
It was
best.
I don't know. I feel like I experienced sort of a moment of zen. It
Yeah,
was nice.
it's funny. I had one Tuesday. Right? I So we have to get a bunch of water into the ground for like dirt work for
Yeah.
our property, and um it's just obviously easier when you have some moisture into the ground to kind of churn it up so it's not a dust bowl. And there's a certain area that our sprinklers don't hit,
Mhm.
so I have to go water it by hand. And I felt like I was straight out of King of the Hill, man. I'd finished working out, I'd just eaten, and I ran out there to make sure like I got some more water in before like nighttime, so the cool air would hold it. And I just had, like you said, you mentioned, I had an ice cold wobbly pop, and I'm sitting there just watering
Yeah.
our property. I'm like, yep.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
pretty much all it was.
And
I just sat
it's
there.
like you're at that age where I don't know, man. Like I get it now. I used to look at older people and be like, how can they just sit there?
Hmm.
And now I totally get it. I just,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
fantastic.
yeah, I've always said that like men, we have this box in like the file cabinets of our brains. There's
Mhm.
just nothing in it, and there's every once in a while you just got to go sit in that box, and you're
Yeah.
just staring out into the abyss. You're not thinking about anything. You're not really doing anything mindful. You're just hitting on reset.
Dude, I'm gonna start doing this at night too when the stars come out. I'm just gonna go up on the
Ooh,
roof with like I don't know, with like a beverage and just
yeah,
stare up at the sky and just
you're in
zone
a great spot for that
out.
too.
Yeah, we see a lot of stars up here. But
Heck yeah.
anyway, enough of the I don't know,
Old guy
old
talk.
guy. Yeah, the dad talk. Um,
Uh,
so we have some things to talk about today. Our feature is going to be an interview that Tommy and Lauren did with Bill Leahy, who qualified out of the NorCal Classic for the CrossFit Games.
mhm.
So excuse me, he's someone who's been on the radar for a while and looking forward to seeing what he'll be able to do at the games in Albany. And then we'll talk about some of the headlines going on. Tia Toomey looking like she's going to compete at the CrossFit Games because of what happened with the HYROX thing. Talk about the Last Chance Qualifier, and then some CrossFit in national headlines as well.
Mhm.
So let's start with the Last Chance Qualifier because as of right now, and I forgot because I went looking for the leaderboard on the game site and could not find it. You need to have the Hustle Up app to do it.
Yeah.
So going by the morning chalk ups reporting, it is Yona Koski on top for the men and Lydia Fish for the women. So if Koski were to qualify, because this is unofficial, they need to review everything. He would be a 10-time CrossFit Games qualifier. Lydia Fish would get her first appearance. Um, so we just got to wait on that. But we only had 25 people submit scores for all the workouts.
Yeah.
um, and I think that I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, but I think part of it, one of the drawbacks about the season of sort of choose your own adventure and go qualify where you want to is that you have a lot of athletes who need to make multiple attempts, and by the time they get to the last chance qualifier, they're just gassed.
Yeah. It's fatigue, right? as with anything, like you keep spinning your wheels for so long, and then I think the for a lot of athletes have expressed this, like the last thing you want to do after you've been trying, coming up just short,
Mhm.
is to go to an online qualifier where you're like in your gym by yourself. Maybe you have another athlete or two that you can like group up with to do it. You have to go through all these hoops of judging, video standards, and it feels just very tedious, especially at the end of the season. And for some athletes, I know chose not to participate because of those additional hoops you have to jump through on the judging side and on the setup side. And it was just like, you know what? It's if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, and that's really unfortunate that it hits in such a way that like you have people who came up really close, and you want the last chance qualifier to be something that people are pining for, right? Because they've been fueled by that near miss, and hey, one or two things didn't go my way, and let's jump in. But the last chance qualifier was largely remember when this was initially instituted, at least in recent history, right? Was when you had a more structured qualifying season and everybody essentially had one opportunity,
Mhm.
and then there was a gap, and
Right.
then it was gearing up for this, versus having it during, say, like the sanctionals era in 2019 and early 2020, where people were just going, and then you can hop on. It feels like maybe there's needs to be one or the other, or this last chance qualifier might have just been an afterthought. Like, hey, let's throw this in. It sounds good, and maybe not as thought through in terms of like, how is this going to play with the rest of the season, as well as the other opportunities that are out there for athletes competing. And it's just unfortunate that you don't have the same turnout for something that in theory should be exciting because athletes are fighting for those final spots. And like, you don't want to take anything away from Yona or Lydia. Like, Lydia should be celebrating. This is an exciting time for her to qualify for the first time. And for Yona, it represents, a decade plus at the top of the sport. I mean, he broke through in 2014, and he's had some off years here and there where he didn't qualify or he was hurt. But still making it to the games 10 times is something that should be celebrated and puts him in rarefied air. And he's a salt of the earth type athlete that I know everybody enjoys on
Mhm.
the athlete side. So it's just unfortunate that it almost just kind of I don't know, flies by the cover of night in
Yeah.
some regards. But
Yeah. No, I have nothing more to add. I agree with everything you just said there. So we will see how that plays out. It's Yonakoski and Lydia Fish right now. And again, video review and everything needs to happen. Well, another thing that happened this past weekend, and we were uh, talking about this last week as we were going into it, is that HYROX World Championships in Chicago. Tia Toomey was supposed to compete, but ended up withdrawing from all the races in which she was supposed to take part.
mhm.
And I believe, from what I have heard and for what has been reported, it was because of an illness or something like that. And it must have been bad because knowing Tia Toomey, I feel like if she could have competed effectively, she would have done so.
Yeah,
But what I think the bigger issue is now is that we were debating whether or not she would be at the games. I think now it's pretty much, yeah, I'm going to go, and like I didn't have my chance here, I need my chance there, and I think this more or less assures us that unless this is some sort of long term thing she's dealing with, which I
yeah.
don't know, but let's assume it isn't. I think she's in Albany.
Yeah, that seems to be the general sentiment, is that like, hey, I left unsatisfied from this, and like, hold on to your butts now when we get to Albany, because she's just gonna come and take it all out there. And talking to some people on the ground and some of the crew from the morning chalk up, and they it seemed to be that one, the atmosphere was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We're the uh we were joking that it was a German dance club vibe there, which, and then I commented, as long as it was that, because I prefer my dance clubs from Bavaria. But the 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 sentiment was that she came in with an illness, so she wasn't 100%. She decided to do the race with James. They won, and despite what it looked like, because it didn't look that way, she was struggling,
Mhm.
like she was fighting, and the race just wiped her, and it was like very clear, like, okay, I can't do this back to back, because that took everything.
Mhm.
And they still won despite her being sick. And it was still an amazing performance for them both, and they walked away with a gold medal. But I think, it's particularly with the race that was coming up with Joanna, I would say it seemed like the expectations were a little bit higher for that because they had set a world record and because Joanna is one of the best in the individual side. And it was like, okay, let's see. Like, we're not coming just to win. We're coming to just destroy and set the bar at a different pace. And if you couldn't do that, I don't, at this point, like, winning just for winning's sake isn't necessarily always Tia's MO. She's like, she wants to continually set the bar higher at this point from a legacy standpoint too.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned the atmosphere there. Like it's crazy how big HYROX has gotten, and to me, like HYROX is the comedian Stephen Wright. He's like, the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
Ah,
It's like
yes.
I feel like HYROX is the second mouse.
Yeah.
I think they watched kind of CrossFit do what they've done, and I don't want to say improved on it, but said, okay, we're going to do this differently, and this differently, and here's our thing. And it's
Mhm.
so far worked out great. Now I think that they will at some point reach that. They're in that growth phase. It will level off a little bit.
Mhm.
What they do after that remains to be seen. But I've said this. I don't know if I said this to you or not, but like I think they're going to be on TV at some point.
Yeah, you would assume so, and I mean that they're not without controversy, right? There was issues
Yeah, yeah.
with their sleds and flooring, and there was a DQ
Mhm.
over a shove during like the team relays, and reorganizing of the podium and things like that, and um, at some level, some of that is also just sport too, right?
Sure.
Like, but yeah, it seems that in the very least on the uh, we'll say this more recreational side for like the people that are competing more for the recreation element of it. They seem to be getting it right because
Agreed.
it's like pumping.
Yeah.
But
It's is it wash, rinse, or rinse, wash, rinse, repeat? I think it is.
yep,
Like it's just they just set up these events and they run them, and people have a great time. All abilities. They've taken all the complexity of the movement out, and I know you can get on the judging and things like that,
yeah.
but people want to do it, and they're signing. How much does it cost to sign up for a High Rocks event? Do we know?
I think that is adjusted slightly. I can pull it up. I have it.
Getting that information.
Yep. Where do you want to go, Sean? Do you want to go? You want to go to Cape Town, maybe Yokohama,
Ooh,
um, Acapulco,
ooh, I'll
maybe.
take that one.
Nothing wrong with a little trip to Mexico.
Mhm. How
What
much is? I'm just interested to see how much people are
I
willing to fork over for a chance to do one of these things.
oh dang it, we should have picked it. No, it's in local currency. Hold on.
Damn it.
Yeah, I should have figured that out. Let me go somewhere in the United States because I'm a little rusty in translating Mexican pesos. Wow, a lot of these are sold out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, right now there's not there's not an American race you can buy tickets for.
No mas boletos is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, all the athlete stuff for no, there we go. No más boletos. Dude, I'm hang tight because I cannot find.
Anyway, they're selling out. There's a huge demand for these things. Now, the question I have is as you move forward, is like, okay, there will be a leveling off because I'm assuming at some point this is a one and done thing for a lot of people. They're like, I want to do an Ironman. Okay, they do an Ironman and then they're never doing it again because of the toll it takes on their bodies. Is it I'm going to do a High Rocks race and then they never do it again because it was just something that they wanted to, check off the list, or is this something where it's like I'm going to do one and then I'm going to do it again? Like what's the shelf life for your average High Rocks customer
Yeah, yeah. So the fee is about $155
for one day?
for one day.
Damn, they're selling these
Let's
things out. That's pretty impressive.
let me let me see for doubles. Proceed. Doubles, yeah, is it's about it's a little bit cheaper per person, but the total, Yeah, is about like $125 a person.
Still
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah,
Not
that
bad.
I mean, at that price point, if that's your entry, that's that's
Pretty
pretty
good.
impressive.
Okay. Last thing we want to talk about before we get to Bill Leahy is there was an article recently that appeared in Rolling Stone magazine here in the United States, and it was entitled "The Death of a CrossFit Athlete. One of the fittest men on earth drowned during a race in Fort Worth. How did it happen?" It's by Callum Marsh, who himself is a CrossFitter. And the reason we bring this up is not because there's anything really new in the article. If you've been following this story, like most people who are in our audience have, you'll read this and you won't be surprised by there's nothing like that major.
Yeah,
But to me, what it symbolizes is the fact it's like this is the story that just will not go away for CrossFit, and this is the first time that a national outlet, since the investigation concluded, has written about this. Now, I know there were others that were looking into it and that that I spoke to, did interviews for that. Those have not been published yet. I don't know like
yeah,
where those are, if they died on the vine or whatever.
yeah,
But as we just talked about HYROX and everything that is going well with them, this is the national headline for CrossFit,
yeah,
and it's like how do they how do they get away I don't know if that's the right phrase, but it's like this just keeps coming up, and I don't know how it's gonna not continue to be talked about.
yeah. And this one, I mean, I don't think it necessarily provides any new information
Mhm.
per se, but I think it takes a more bigger picture view at the events that preceded it, where kind of like a where does CrossFit go from here? How did we get here? What are the systemic issues that maybe led to this? Um, I mean, it was well written, well organized, but it's just like you said, it represents the fact that this is going to be a gigantic, like kind of shadow or like a uh, kind of like thing looming in the background
Mhm.
constantly, and at least as long as there are enough ties to a lot of these issues that are raised in terms of like people, persona, workforce, and yeah, like in some ways, reading it was also like kind of a refresher. Like, yeah, like don't let I don't know, like what happened to Lazar go. You know,
Right.
like we can't just move on.
Mhm.
Because I think that would be a disservice to the other athletes, to him, to his family. Um, but yeah, and I it kind of like came out of nowhere, honestly. Too the article just kind of dropped out of nowhere, and it felt
Yeah.
like, oh man, yeah, it was kind of a
Right.
reminder, but
Agreed.
which is important sometimes, right? You know, like I think we have coping mechanisms to kind of compartmentalize things and to be able to move forward with our day to day lives. But it's also important to understand the way these things and be reminded of the way these things, affected us and what happened and how we can avoid letting repeats of this stuff happen. So
Yeah. And I think too, like the reason that this will probably continue to come up, and I'm my guess is given the outlets that I know have been sniffing around this and talk to people and looking to publish something, is because there has not been, and I don't know if a full accounting is the right phrase, but there haven't been. Here's what happened. Here are the answers. Here's what's been done. You know, it seems like there's been, I don't know. I don't want to say, I don't know if half measures, but like there's been no sort of closure,
yeah,
right?
well,
When you look at like, and I related this, the last major athlete death that I was a part of was Dale Earnhardt at the 2001 Daytona 500. And I mean, that shook the NASCAR world. But they like immediately came out and they said, here's what we're doing. Here are the solutions. And then they came back in the summer and they did the, was it the Pepsi 400? And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. won it. And it was like sort of this closure and everybody, but things were solved. There was,
yeah,
and I don't know if, I think there's like part of the community, and this is what has sort of driven a wedge into the community. Like some people think, well, hey, it happened. Let's move on. Others are like, no, we need to have a full accounting of this And I think until that happens, these stories are going to continue to be out there.
Well, a big part of that is CrossFit not revealing the investigation details, right?
Sure. Yeah,
That's a huge one,
exactly.
right?
Mhm.
Because it goes back on their claims and testaments toward transparency,
Mhm.
you know. And any steps taken by CrossFit. So like, even in the article they say like CrossFit's like we've addressed it, but like really have you? How do we know that you're fully being honest with us if you won't be transparent about what your investigation found?
Mhm.
So we can't fully like if this investigation is supposed to be third party, non-partial and just kind of open up the kimono and this is everything that we found. How do we know that you're actually touching on every single thing that was
Right.
done, or are you just addressing the things that are easiest for you to do right now and you're telling us something else?
Yeah.
At this point, I don't think CrossFit as an organization has that sort of pull anymore for everyone to be like, just trust us.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I would encourage people to go read the article. It's by
Yeah.
Callum Marsh. It's Rolling Stone. I think at rollingstone.com you can read it. I'm not sure if it's behind a paywall or not.
Mhm.
Um,
I didn't think it was, at
it's
least.
really well written, really well done, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people from the community who show up. Mike Halpin is referenced multiple times because if you remember the work that he did putting together that really extensive timeline, Brian Friend is in there. They talked to Greg Glassman. They talked to Taylor Self, I think is quoted in there.
Yeah. He talked to a bunch of people. Yeah.
Castro spoke through a statement,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was thoroughly reported on.
Hmm.
So go ahead and check that out. All right. Let's get into our interview with Bill Leahy. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Thirdsy. If you want to improve your sleep and recovery game, you want to go to thirdsy.com. You want to put some of that rest and recovery collagen into your shopping cart, and then you want to enter the code TEF at checkout to save 20%. This stuff is fantastic. It's got GABA, L-theanine, magnesium in it. These are ingredients that help calm your central nervous system, help you get to sleep faster, stay asleep longer, and feel better when you wake up. And you know what's funny? I went to Yosemite recently and I forgot my Thirdsy, and I got like 8 hours of sleep one night, which for me is a ton.
Yeah.
But I didn't take Thirdsy, and my deep sleep wasn't where it needed to be. Where I've gotten more deep sleep in less time while taking
Mhm.
Thirdsy than I have in an 8 hour span. And that to me just proves like how effective it is. And
Yeah.
plus the collagen protein in it helps you recover while you sleep. And that is especially for like master's age athletes. It's awesome, man. I swear by this stuff. I love it. Go check it out. It's their rest and recovery collagen. The website is thirdsy.com. You can just scan the QR code on your screen right there. If you're watching this, the code is TEF at checkout and you'll save 20%. Plus, it just tastes great.
It's awesome. It really is.
I wish they could make like this is for the Thirdsy product people. If you could make like a non-drowsy Thirdsy, like during the day that I could take that tasted like that,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So
drink that in
we're
my
like,
week, you know,
yeah. Huh.
I'm talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thirdsy.com. The code is TEF. So Tommy, you and Lauren spoke to Bill Leahy yesterday.
Yeah, fresh off of qualifying for his first CrossFit Games, and right out of a training session with his crew. Bill joined us and also joined us for a little bit of a Q&A, our weekly Q&A,
Cool.
which he referenced. We referenced there as well, and it's great catching up with him. He's someone that's been on our radar to get to that upper echelon for quite some time, and it was really cool to get his perspective as he chatted with us for a good portion of his afternoon.
All right. With that, here is Tommy and Lauren's conversation with Bill Leahy.
All right, now we welcome in our special guest for this week. He is fresh off a win at the Northern California Classic and qualifying for his very first CrossFit Games as an individual. It is Bill Leahy. Bill, how you doing? And thanks for joining us.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
So, as I just mentioned, you just a couple weeks here now, maybe 10 days or so from
Yep.
qualifying for the very first CrossFit Games. Has it fully set in yet? And what has been the immediate aftermath of finally getting to get that Games ticket?
It's funny you say that. I train with a lot of people, and I had some people literally just finished training, and we were talking about it. And we're like, I don't think I'm going to get over it the entire summer that I qualify for the games. Like, I think it's going to be something that we're just going to be like, you're going to the games. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. I'm going to the games. So honestly, I don't think I'll ever get over it until I go to the games. Until I'm
It's
actually
the
there.
best summer treat that you could ask for, right?
Very much so. And this has been a long time coming, and a lot of obstacles I had to overcome on the way. So it means a lot to be there finally.
It has. And even when I think of last year at West Coast Classic, yep. I can't believe that that was just a year ago, tearing your Achilles. I mean, that's even a major injury to come back from. So just backtracking, when was the turning point where you could really start increasing the intensity of your workouts and essentially training for
Yeah.
the CrossFit Games? Because of course that's been the goal.
Honestly, like I would say it almost took till about March of the Open before it
Mm.
was like I was like mostly like 97% unrestricted on everything I did. I would say it took honestly till somewhere around like TFX to the online semis before I was like 100% unrestricted, meaning like when I walked in there, whatever I programmed for myself, running, step ups, pistols, like it didn't matter. I was okay to do it. Dubs, the volume was okay. So like honestly, it was like March, February before it was like I was like really training good and hard. And then I would say it was somewhere around late April to May before it was like unrestricted training. Like there was no
Mhm.
restrictions on it. So
So
like,
really down to the last moment.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much, very much so. I mean, I did my absolute best from day one after the surgery up until that point to keep as much as I could and just find ways to train that stayed off of my Achilles or just manage the load and that sort of stuff. But yeah, before it was really unrestricted, it's been like not long at all, like a month or
Dang.
two. Yeah.
And one of the things you hear from athletes who, and I would call you an explosive athlete. I think even from way back when I think a lot of people were introduced to you when you set the world record in regional event 5 on the rope climbs. You
Yeah,
could
yeah.
tell that like you're a very like I don't know, a poppy athlete. We used to say in basketball that they have that like that first step,
Yeah.
and,
No.
and that different pace, and it's clear that you have that. And to come back from an injury like an Achilles, one of the biggest hurdles is just the mental hurdle of trusting yourself again.
Oh,
Um, was there a particular moment where you felt like you could trust yourself again? I know you mentioned like the physical limitations and things like that, but being like, oh yeah, that pop and that what do I call it? You don't have to think about it type moment where you just
yeah.
explode and go.
Honestly, this entire process I really tried to take as a gradual one because I knew that when I hurt myself, I had a good base before. Like I was fit, I was young, and I knew I was going to be disciplined in the recovery process. So honestly, I was going to lead more than not to a fast recovery. And one thing I wanted to be aware of was coming back too fast because it was
Mm.
like everything was set in stone
Mm.
for me to come back fast from it, faster than maybe the normal person would. But what I basically didn't want to do was recover fast to where I put myself in a situation I'm not ready for. So to answer your question, there wasn't necessarily one point where I was like, oh, this is it. I have it. I'm back, whatever. Because I took stuff so slow, so gradual, step by
Oh,
step, that it was like what I did yesterday was like incrementally more today. So there was like, it was no point where I was like, wasn't running. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're out here sprinting kind of thing. It was like, I
yeah.
gradually increased my running over like 3 months until I was like running hard kind of thing.
It Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that because I hear a lot of times that's the hardest part is being prudent in your recovery. Like athletes almost want to come back sooner than they should.
Mhm.
And where does that come from for you to be able to stay disciplined in that and like push back maybe those inner thoughts of like, hey, maybe I should go for more.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Honestly, I just kept telling myself that it's like you have to play the long game when it comes to this. You're still a younger athlete relative to the field. You want to have a long career in this. And like
Mm.
what the immediate reward would be for running early or jumping on the box early or pushing it at all is not going to be worth in the long run. And I just constantly remind myself that this is a long game. You are trying to recover correctly because you want to be in this sport for time to come. So that was just
Mhm.
something I just kept reminding myself of. I mean, don't get me wrong, you were tempted. Like I was tempted to do things that I know I shouldn't do. And like you were tempted to push and everything, you're like, this is easy, like I can go. And you're like, no, you just can't. My PT helped with that, Dennis Romeg is his name. He helped me a lot with that too. We kind of laid out an entire baseline and plan as to when I would progress for each thing, regardless of if I felt like I could go farther. So it was like when it
Mhm.
came time to run, I could have ran 2 or 3 months before that, but like I chose
Oh.
to kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it's like situations and things like that that it definitely took some maturity and discipline for sure.
Mhm.
And obviously, this season is, I mean, truthfully, every season, almost every season for the past 5 years for the CrossFit Games has been very different. But when you think of the reasons that this was your year to qualify? Do you think that one of them is because you were more recovered and you didn't spend a whole calendar year essentially beating yourself up that you might have in previous years? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just curious, like, where that comes into play.
I think it's twofold. Yes, in one hand, I agree with you. I think that did help. Like, I really didn't have much of any competing during the off season. But on the other hand, it was because you're rehabbing. So it's not like you really had the appropriate training that would have allowed for that. It kind of wasn't like I was 100% the whole year and I just trained. So it's like, to one hand, yeah. But on the other hand, I wasn't able to get sufficient training for probably like 6 months, sort of thing. So it's like, maybe not, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned obstacles, plural, because also, the year prior to that at the West semifinals,
Mhm.
you had to withdraw due to illness too. And
Yeah.
it's in a sport where you only really get one opportunity to showcase your talents over a weekend, at least in years prior, right? Like it all builds up to that regional or semifinal weekend, and you have to perform then. To have 2 seasons in a row after an exciting performance in 2022
Yeah.
not go your way, what was the support system for you to be able to kind of bounce back the way that you did, both physically and mentally?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. Like, I think it was my second year of CrossFit was when I went to the MAC. So like I was still really new and young into it. Actually, Brandon Luckett, who y'all probably have heard of before, he
Yeah.
took me under his wing and helped me out a lot. And I qualified for the MAC that year because we trained like my second year together a lot. And then when I qualified, everything like went well. I mean, I had a very bad day one, but like I climbed out of like 25th and finished maybe I think 10th overall. So like I missed the game by 5 spots, and I was like, dude, this was my second year at CrossFit. Like I'm like ready to qualify for the games next year because I'm still having newbie games with stuff. So it's like everything. I'm still getting stronger, like all that sort of stuff. So I was like, I'm going to the games next year, kind of thing. I was like, I'm 5 spots out, and then I show up at the West semifinal, and I end up getting COVID that like Wednesday night. I remember we were eating because family had gotten there, and I was like started to feel my throat, like how you get that when you're starting to get sick, and I was like,
Yeah.
thing. Like if you ignore it, maybe it goes away. And then Thursday I woke up and I was sick for sure. And then Friday I was like, I'm gonna do the first event. I did the first event and it was like I was at absolute exhaustion. Like I had never felt that bad in my life in a workout. And it was like I could trudge through the rest of the weekend in like last place to say I did it, but like ultimately that wasn't my goal and that wasn't the reason why I was there. So that was definitely a disappointment because it was like something that happened that was out of my control. But like y'all said, you have one chance, and it happened to be
Yeah.
one week out of the year that happened. So that definitely was a hard thing and a hard pill to swallow. But something that I've done from the beginning of my career till now is I've always surrounded myself with a lot of people. Like I have probably like 10 to 15 training partners, meaning like in a
Oh,
given week, I will train with 10 to 15 different people. Like not kidding you,
wow.
Oh, wow.
there was 7 people at my house 30 minutes ago that were all
Nice.
training at lunch. So
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
so a support group and a team means a lot, especially when you have which you would consider failures or just obstacles that come in your way. You cannot do this alone. Like not alone at all. Like we do this too much, too often. It's too mundane. Like just to be the best in the world, you have to. And if you don't make it at a sustainable rate with having things like training partners or whatever, like you're gonna burn out. I mean, we've seen that with some people in the sport in the space too, for sure.
Yeah.
So then you start, your first ever semifinal with probably a goal that you obtained that was way higher than maybe what you even dreamed of happening, finishing 10th at the MAC. Then
Yeah.
you have 2 years of
Yeah, yeah.
getting sick, 1 year of the Achilles. Did you think that this would then be the year that you would qualify? Because I know you did the online semifinals, you did TFX,
Yeah.
or was it just to collect data? What was the actual
Yeah.
mindset going
But
in?
I think the timeline was I got sick at the West semifinal, and then I think the following year's West Coast Classic, and that was when I
Oh, right.
ruptured my Achilles. Yeah, and then so going into this year, online semis, I had a lot going on leading up to it. Like I just got married, we just moved into a house and all that sort of stuff, so I didn't feel
Congrats.
Yeah,
prepared. Yeah,
congrats.
as I should have going into it, and I honestly thought the results were gonna be a lot worse than they were. And also, like I had been hurt this whole off season. Like you don't really
Yeah.
test yourself much. I just didn't know. I was truthfully, I was ready to open the leaderboard and be like 75th. And then I opened it and I was like 19th and I was like, or something like that, I think. And I
Yeah,
was like,
19th.
gosh, like I missed by like 7 spots. I was like, maybe this is more attainable this year than I thought. just given the circumstances, like I couldn't train for 6 months kind of thing. So once that happened, as wild as it sounds, going to TFX the week leading up to it, I was sick. And
Oh my
Oh,
God. Come on.
I'm not kidding. Yeah, it's wild. But I got sick like Monday or Tuesday of that week, and TFX was the weekend. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
fine. But what I ended up doing was I sauna like every day leading up to it because I was like, I'm trying to sweat out the sickness. But I think what I ended up doing was indirectly dehydrating myself. So on a
Mm.
event one at TFX,
Ew.
if you look at my placements, I was like 20 something on that first event. My
Yeah.
legs just cramped up bad on the 100 wall balls, and then the
Yeah.
rest of the event was like a wash. And the rest of the weekend, I was shot from
Wow.
cramping on event one. So that was really frustrating because I was like, no, this is happening again. I was like, I still have NorCal. Like, I still have NorCal. And while it was a quick turnaround, like, I knew that I was like, there's still another chance, another shot. And thankfully, I showed up to NorCal not sick, and there was no injury. So everything was like kind of fall on. But yeah,
Finally.
that was a long time coming.
Yeah, what do we got to do? We got to get you like a Z pack or something like that to make sure you ward off everything right before.
Yeah, not kidding. I'm gonna quarantine myself before the games. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh yeah.
I get
Show
sick.
up early, pump all the vitamins.
Yeah,
Like,
very much so. So
Oh,
it's
and
been a
and
wild ride.
and so when you step on the floor at NorCal, it's very much like a grassrootsy type vibe there. It's kind of cool what they do there. And was there a point where you're like, all right, this feels different? I feel like, all right, everything's going well now. I'm in the driver's seat of this competition and my shot to get to the games.
Honestly, because of so much stuff that had happened leading up to it, whether it was me getting hurt, me being sick, I had penalties in qualifiers. Like I missed Rogue a year and a half ago or whatever, because I had penalties from that. Like I've had lots of things that have been in my control and out of my control kind of go negatively that, to be honest, at no point during that entire competition was I like, I got it. Like I'm still up. Like I was going into the last event with like a 25-point lead. I was like, if like, and I think it was Jorge was in second. I was like, if he
Yeah.
takes like 10th or worse on his workout, I can take last and still go to the games. Like it was pretty secure, and most people would feel secure, but like, to be honest, I was like trying to stay as locked in as possible because I was just like, the job's not done. It's not over. And it wasn't over until I finished. And as soon as I walked across the finish line, it was this big sigh of, because it was like more than just that weekend. It was the last 2 years leading up to this finally had come, and I finally made the games. So yeah.
I'm always fascinated by that moment, right? Because I love hearing what athletes experience versus what maybe that you built up in your head,
Yeah.
because it's this like this thing you put on a pedestal and find you get in this moment. Was it you mentioned that sigh of relief? Was there immediate joy? Was there like serenity? Like what is that?
It's funny. I talked to the people who were there. Honestly, the biggest thing I felt was like relaxation. It was like for the first
Yeah.
time in a long time, I was just like, I could take a breath and sit back because it was like a big goal of mine that had set out for finally like went my way, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so while it was like joy on one hand because it was an incredible thing to do, and coming back from injury, it was a really big deal. On one hand, I just felt like I could take a breath. Two, because of like the structure of the season. We had online semis, 2 weeks later TFX, 3 weeks later NorCal. So it's like a 6-week span that you were like kind of in competition mode. So that had some play and effect to it for sure. But the biggest thing was I was just like, dang, I can relax. Like I get this week off, and like I deserved it. Like I finally achieved it. Just like all of it. And it was just so nice and relaxing. And it was a good time. And it was definitely a long time coming.
Okay, the NorCal ends. You have this week off. What did you do to celebrate, relax even more? What was it full of?
We came back, and I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I just chilled at my house, did a few things around here, saw people, went and ate, that sort of stuff. And then my wife and I and her family went to Disney World Thursday to Sunday. So, yeah.
Oh,
My
What was the highlight?
Yeah, so I mean everything. Like I had never been to Disney World in my life before. So like it was an entire experience. Like I did not know the depth that they took everything to, like just with all the
Yeah.
rides and just everything. I was like, this is enormous and insane. Yeah.
Did you go to Universal?
We went to so I'm not even good with all this. I think we went to Disney World. So whatever that means. And then
yeah,
in Orlando.
yeah.
So yeah. So we went to that one where it has like 4 parks, I think. So
That's
that was a
awesome.
cool experience. That was cool. Yeah. I mean, I had never experienced anything like that. So everything was just wild and insane to me.
Mhm. So you get this like big sigh of relief or this relaxation. You get some well-deserved rest and some vacation time with your wife. And do you feel like that moment of like has unlocked anything in training? Do you feel more present with training? Is there any way where you feel like that release has almost kind of benefited you?
Yeah, I think so without a doubt. Honestly, I just feel a lot more free. NorCal and
Mm,
the entire journey to get there was a lot. And finally achieving the goal that I had set out for when I started CrossFit from the first day was go to the games. That
Mm.
was like the number one thing. Like I had steps that I wanted to do, whether it was like make semis, whatever. And one of the steps along the way, that was a very big one, was make the CrossFit Games. And so
mm,
it was like kind of like finally came to fruition. And it was just one of those things I was like, dang, it's finally here. And I felt like the bigger thing of it was the end goal was always something special, but the journey that it took to get there, the trials and obstacles that I overcame along the way, the times when I wanted to quit and I didn't quit or kept going, whatever it was, like that's where all the juice was. Like that was where everything that I gained, and that honestly is the bigger part of it, I think, for sure, for
mm,
me, at
mm.
least with my journey to get there.
Yeah.
What is that why then? When you think of obtaining this goal to make it to the CrossFit Games, what
Mhm.
are the things that drove you to continue even with the adversity along the way?
Honestly, the biggest thing is I just didn't want to quit. Like I felt like this was something that like God called me to do, and it was just like all the physical abilities and gifts that I had. I was like, this is it. Like you know how when you find that one thing in your life that you're like, this doesn't feel like work, even though you are working. Like that's what I felt
Mhm.
like it was, and it was. And while it like almost seemed like a struggle, and I just kept failing, it was like deep down I knew that like I need to continue. Like this is what He has me to do, and so it was just like I can't quit. I can't quit, and it's kind of crazy because like really what I ended up doing was when I started CrossFit, I gave myself 4 years. I was like, I'm gonna go for this for 4 years because I wanted to be realistic in the space. Like I knew this was a really hard working sport. You weren't gonna just walk in with talent and be good. It didn't matter. Like you had to work hard. And so it was gonna
Yeah.
take time. And so I gave myself 4 years from when I started. And then I got hurt. And I remember right after I got hurt, I was talking to my dad in the hotel room, even before we flew back from California. And I was like, it was like we were kind of just sitting there, just like almost in disbelief, like couldn't understand what happened. There was like we weren't 100% sure I ruptured my Achilles, but like it was pretty straightforward. I did like me being able to jump on the box a few times after I did made us think maybe we didn't, but we were kind of just sitting there in silence, like looking at each other, and we were just like, and I was like, I can't quit. Like I need to give it another year, and it
Mm.
is kind of crazy. Like I gave myself one more year, and then that was like when it all worked out. And it's like, wow, it's insane. Yeah.
Right in the nick of time.
It's a yeah, because I mean, at some point in life, it's like, all right, it's probably eventually time to move on. Like you don't want to like beat it to death if it doesn't seem like it's working out or it's not for you. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just knew deep down, I was like, this is something that God made me for, and like I just got to keep going and keep pushing, and it'll eventually work out. And
Mm.
like always, it works out way better than you ever could have imagined.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That's awesome to hear. And I will say this. I remember when it happened at West Coast, and I don't want to say you get enough credit for it because it's a weird way to frame that. But you being able to do box jumps, those high box jumps with the ruptured Achilles, is one of the craziest things
Insane.
that I
Yeah,
don't think gets talked about. Of like just sheer grit, pop, explosive, whatever you want to call it, to
I
be
have
able to do that.
I have no idea how that happened. And honestly, because that happened, it gave me hope until the MRI happened that I was like, maybe I didn't. Because it's like you look back and you're like, Kobe ruptured his Achilles and he got up and shot a free throw. And everyone thought
Yeah.
that was insane. If you look about anybody else who does, they're straight to the floor and they need help
Yeah.
getting up. So like
Yeah.
I was like, I jumped on a 30-inch box. It was 6 more times because I had 4 reps left, but I got 2 no reps because I put my hands on the box. I was like,
Yep.
I jumped on a 30-inch box 6 times with a ruptured Achilles. Like maybe it's not ruptured. There's no way. Like nobody has done that before. And so I was like kind of holding on to this hope, I guess you'd say, with all of it. But yeah, that's a crazy thing that you're right. It's kind of nuts. I don't know how.
Bill, you're the Kobe of CrossFit. That's
Oh
basically
man.
the correlation that we just made here.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Oh, that's good. If you get the what 5, 6 titles and all that good
Yeah,
stuff that comes
Yeah.
with it,
a
that'd be
long way
nice.
to go. A long
Yeah.
way.
You're at a good start.
But and speaking of that, how did you ultimately find CrossFit as as a fitness methodology and get into the sport?
Yeah, my aunt owns an affiliate which I coach at currently and started
Mhm.
coaching probably about 6 months into my CrossFit journey. I got my L1 and started coaching there. But just family gatherings and stuff, she would always like talk about CrossFit, and I had cousins who did it and that sort of stuff. And I knew it was something I wanted to do, But at the time, I was in high school, my senior year, playing basketball, and I had offers to play college basketball, and it was kind of like what I was doing. But as time went on, that was 2020, which was COVID. I think in March is like when everything shut down. And so that was when I started picking up CrossFit at the house and just doing some things because I was like just kind of bored. And so I started doing that, and that was when I really fell in love with it. And I was like, I want to do this because like I mean I had played basketball my whole life since I was like 8, I think. And that was like always the goal was like play college basketball. When I found CrossFit, I was like, I can play the NBA of CrossFit. Like I can make that because like I knew I couldn't make the NBA in basketball. Like my best bet was to walk on a D1 school maybe, and it was just after that it was smaller offers from other schools. So I knew going into it, I was like into CrossFit, I was like I can make the NBA of that. So my aunt definitely helped me with that, get into it. But that was kind of how I got into it. And honestly, from day one, it was I want to go to games.
Yeah.
Do you ever play like pickup games or have like a group that you still play with?
Occasionally, yeah, occasionally I will. Honestly, I'm gonna say that till after my career. I just don't want to. I don't want to be like
Oh yeah.
something about how I roll my ankle playing
Yeah.
basketball.
You
Like,
gotta at least pause now till the games.
yeah, for sure, yeah, easily, yeah. But I'll definitely put that aside. I think until my career is over. I've shot and played with some people here and there, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
I could tell you, firsthand as it. But granted, I'm 39, so I got a few years on you.
Yeah,
I've seen more injuries in men's league basketball than just about everything else.
that
So
is very true. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna save that for later in my career when I can afford to get hurt.
I so after 2022 happens, you have this I would say close to a breakout performance at semifinals. You start to get onto some people's radar. I specifically remember having a conversation with Dan Bailey that year at the games, and he comes and he goes, "Watch out for Bill Leahy because I believe you got to test some
Yeah,
games workouts."
correct. I went with a group of people to a place in Ohio, and we tested. There's like demo teams. Oh no, there's like a test squad that happens earlier, and then a demo team. I don't know how they do it now, but that was how it happened then. So yeah, that year and the following year, I was part of the test squad, which Dan Bailey was there too, because he's around all the time. So yeah, but I got to know him. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, he had glowing things to say about you, and I'm curious. One, how was that testing experience like for you, and maybe like fueling the fire and getting to feel a portion of what would become these games workouts, something that you're aspiring to, and then also, I think sometimes we build narratives and hype around people, and does that affect you at all? Were you clued into some of the hype maybe around your name coming out of that year?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, that definitely helped testing the events. It just gave me more of a sense of peace with it all because I was like, the games just always seems like you said, this thing you put on a pedestal, this huge event that happens. That's 12 workouts or 10 workouts in 3 days. So it's crazy. But like those years I went through it and I went through events twice and in different forms, and all that sort of stuff. So it definitely gave me confidence that like you can do this. Like you can definitely hang. And then honestly, just the experience of it all, like learning how it was Boz mainly. The first year was
Yeah.
like all Boz, and then the second year Dave was there and Boz kind of went back and forth. But it was just seeing how they program, their thoughts behind it, and honestly just seeing the entire scope of it all, which is like how intricate everything is, just like cleaning the floor, getting different weight changes, different athlete sizes, like all that sort of stuff is much deeper than we ever give them credit for, which is kind of a crazy thing. So to see it behind the scenes was a super cool thing. And then about hype, yes, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because one thing, it's really cool to have people who are well respected in whatever space you're in believing in you. That's a cool thing. Like that's how I see hype and all that. Like is when you have somebody like Dan Bailey saying you're gonna be good, you're like, wow, that guy was really, really good and he thinks you're gonna be good. That's a super cool thing.
Yeah.
And then also in the same breath, it does lead you sometimes to feel pressure. And sometimes pressure can be taken in a wrong way. Like you can just feel like you have expectations that you want to meet. So then almost sometimes it leads you to be just nervous, anxious, whatever. And I've definitely dealt with that too, for sure. Cause like I've had a lot of people say like, you're going to be good kind of thing. So it's like that there's pressure that is involved with that. And honestly, I feel like now I'm kind of on the tail end of being able to handle that correctly, especially with how NorCal went and all that. I definitely feel, but that has definitely plagued me to some degree at some point. Cause it's like, you want to meet the expectations of what everybody is saying, and it's a big deal and it's a lot of pressure, and sometimes it makes you play safe, if that makes sense, or just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
of things, and you don't want to take that risk or you don't want to push or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely goods and bad to it.
Is there a specific moment that you can recall where you felt like that pressure was too much and it in some ways potentially crippled you?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. If you look back at the history of me competing, no matter what it is, but event one, I always do bad in. And it's been a reoccurring thing. Like if you look at
Should
the
call
map,
Pat Vellner.
yeah, yeah. It's like I would look at the Mac. It was a max lift and a GHD overhead squat handstand walk. I did awful on the first day. Like I was in 25th after day one. And then the next whatever 4 events we had, I was like top 10 in the other 4 events. And it was like they had no correlation between why I was bad at day one and then good at day two. West Coast Classic, when I ruptured my Achilles, I did awful on the run, clean and jerk workout. And then the next day I came back with like a 10th on the front squat workout. And then even hurting myself, I think I was 4th on the rope climb workout. So it's like there was no correlation there that came back. Like I've had this happen to me more times than not. Crash Crucible like a year and a half ago. I did awful on day one. Like I fell off of pegboard, and then I was like day one was bad, and then day 2 and 3 I like stayed like top 5 in every workout. So it's like, yeah, without a doubt, because it's like I always am just nervous. There's build up, there's pressure, there's expectations going to the event, and you almost let that crumble you. And then the first day is always bad for me because of that, just to build up. And then like I always pull out of it and do better day 2 and 3. And there's no correlation to what the events are. And honestly, I think getting hurt helped me put everything in perspective, helped me take all the weight off of me and all of that. And I think it was almost a skewed point of view because it's like I did the same thing at TFX, but it was for a different reason, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so even for me and myself, like I felt like I had worked a lot on myself to get over that. But then I showed up to TFX and I was like, the same thing happened. This doesn't make any sense. And it honestly led to some insecurities and lack of confidence going into NorCal. I just didn't know because I thought I was like past this. Like I worked a lot on it. Getting hurt really put everything in perspective for me, how quickly something can be taken away. And going into NorCal, yeah, there's definitely some uncertainty with that because like that, in my opinion, wasn't my biggest weakness. It was never one thing I was bad at. It was like as crazy as it sounds, the first event, whatever that amounted to, just getting over handling the pressure. And I thought I had gotten past that. TFX happened, and then it was like the uncertainty of it, was it because I was sick and dehydrated myself, or was it because of nerves? Well, then when I went to NorCal, I was like, okay, that was clearly because I was sick and dehydrated myself. Like I've worked past that. So yeah, it's definitely something that I've had to overcome. And circling back to what I said earlier, it is one of the things that I'm proud of me making the games now, talking about trials or obstacles that I had to overcome. It's like that stuff is more meaningful than the end goal and the entire journey to get there.
Yeah, yeah. And now you get to look forward to, what you've been, aiming for so long
Yeah.
is the CrossFit Games. And I hear a lot from people that they say CrossFit Games training is like one of their favorite aspects of it because
Yeah.
just the scope of what's possible at the games means you get to include more stuff into your training a little bit more.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? And I don't know, what are you looking forward to most, I guess, once you get on site?
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, you can like, there's definitely things I looked into on my week off because it's like essentially a week off, 6-week block of training, and then week of the games. So it's like I wrote myself a block as far as like what I think I need to get better at. And then I think like games training, when everybody says it's time for games training, I don't necessarily think that means what you do necessarily, the amount you do changes that much. I think what you do is more of what should change. And that's kind of like what it is. Like you're more odd object, definitely more running if you want to have a shot, like things like that you look at for sure. And then just, yeah, the endless possibilities of being able like to flip a tire and do all that, carry sandbags, yokes, ropes, all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, the endless possibilities. And then just the newness it brings to training is a fun thing for sure. And then obviously you train for the game. So that's cool.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm so excited to see you in Albany, Bill.
yeah, Bill, I think we speak for everyone. We're excited to see you, one, get the first event out of the way, whatever it is, and hopefully crush it, and then see what ultimately the weekend holds for you once you get to the CrossFit Games. Because
Yeah, I'm excited.
we appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know we're going to hop over with our Q&A now for all our patrons. You can catch us with Bill on our live Q&A sessions if you're just listening to the pod. But yeah, we'll catch up with you soon, and I really appreciate the time.
Yes, of course. Thank y'all.
The first person, when I knew Bill Leahy was legit, was Adrian Bosman. And I remember Boz, I think it was was it in the Syndicate Crown or it was either the
It
Mac?
was after we talked about it in a little bit. I can't remember if we talked about it in Q&A or the interview, but the testing. Remember they did
That was
games
it.
testing.
Yes.
And him and Dan Bailey both were like,
yeah.
That boy fit.
Yeah, when Boz says that, I pay attention. Like, that guy
Yeah.
knows what he's talking about. So that was the first time I was like, okay, I got to keep an eye on Bill Leahy. So I'm really thankful that he took the time to talk to you too.
Yeah, and he's got a great training environment. He talked about his crew that shows up to train at his home gym that he's got going on, and I don't know. I really liked his approach and perspective, and
Mm.
he was just very thoughtful and open, and super super cool to see from that. And I related back to other sports too, where like you can tell when someone has moves at a different clip, like
Yeah.
their first step in basketball, or like
Mm.
in hockey when someone takes off and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
that guy's
yeah.
that has got something. They're like that's Bill for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into community support before we get into PRs and no reps.
Yes, so we got one that we supported last year as well. It's a 24 hours of heroes. Took place this
Mm.
past Saturday just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The organizer is a member of the AFJ, and they do this fundraiser every year to support the Alexandra House, which is a women's domestic abuse shelter. So if the link to donate will still be live for another week, so if you're able to support that, it's a cool way of donating some sweat equity, supporting some very near and dear elements of the our community with the hero workouts, for doing it for 24 hours straight, and then providing a safe place for domestic abuse survivors to get separated from the issue and find some solace. So you can go check out the 24 Hours of Heroes website. It is 24hoh.com. You can also go support the Alexandra House. It's www.alexandra, ALEXANDRA house.org. And then if you want to support it, you can go to the donation link, givebutter.com/24HOH25. Again, that's givebutter.com /24HOH25. So a great, like a cool 24-hour fundraiser supporting for a good cause. And yeah, if you have anything like this, please let us know, because we love spreading the word.
Absolutely. Anything you guys want us to get the word out on, send it to our either Talking Elite Fitness Instagram account, send it to mine, Tommy's, include all the details that you possibly can. Because like Tommy said, we want to make sure that we get the word out to as many people as possible and send them to the right spots in order to get the people that need help, the assistance that they need. Let's get into PRs and no reps. I actually have one of each.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you want to start with no reps? You want
I had two. I was gonna no rep Canada for one, because the streak
The
continues.
streak continues. And you know what? You know what I love about that is because the last time was against my team in 1993 when they pulled that BS illegal stick call.
Yeah.
Turned the series around. So serves you right.
I wanted to text you right after. I was like, finally, you can rest, Sean.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, oh no. Okay. Well, plus
Oh.
it's because the Oilers have eliminated the Kings the last 4 years. I'm like, that team cannot win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. But and then my other no rep was, we were talking about, was deep rooted weeds, because I spent forever when one of our first shirts from the show is all about dim roots, and I got the mother load on one of them, and it was the most gratifying feeling ever. And I'm like, I never
Right?
want to deal with one of those mofos again.
My fingers hurt from pulling that stuff out of the ground. Like, I have so much respect for people who do this on a daily basis for a living. Like,
Yep.
I was out there thinking about that, going, man.
I weeded for 4 hours and then went to try and deadlift at the gym afterwards, and I was shocked.
Good luck.
Shot.
Good luck. All right. Well, my no rep is the word bro. We need to get rid of the word bro has got to go. Like, we have got to expunge this from our collective vocabulary, because it is. I was hanging around for my full-time job at San Jose State. I was with two of the San Jose State football players, and so they're Gen Z, and then a Gen Alpha kid who's probably like 10 years old. And I swear every other word was bro.
Low key, high key.
Bro. No, bro. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. We need to stop with this.
I just picture me and like, pause, I'm out.
And it was like Hank Hill, totally like, I don't know.
Those boys ain't right.
Damn it, Bobby. You don't have to say bro. And every other word was bro. So let's try to have a week-long moratorium on saying bro. That's my no-no.
Don't tell Jason Khalipa.
I know, right? And you know what? Compared to, and I love Jason. Jason's a great guy. Yeah,
Yeah, he is.
Compared to this crew, his use of the word bro is reserved.
Yeah, their language makes Jason sound like he's, I don't know, giving a Catholic mass.
It's how I know I'm old now. It's just, can we not say that anymore? My kids said it the other day. I go, where did you get that?
Yeah. Ooh, I just thought of, now that you mentioned we're old kind of thing, I just thought of another no rep. What do I call it? Sports ages. Because there was a pitcher that was pitching, and my mother-in-law was like, get that like old like washed up pitcher out of here. And I looked, and he was a year older than me. I was like, damn it.
I know, right?
Oops.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Yeah.
All right, PRs.
I'm gonna double up on a PR again and go back and PR Marston Sawyers.
That was gonna be mine.
Oh, okay. He gets the rare golden PR from everybody.
I think I have it right here. The old butter bin, right?
Oh!
Good job, Mars.
Dang. He tried.
Oh man.
Oh,
he's just like over the finish line, then just the back end gets squirrely on him, and he just goes. I mean, the butter bin lands on top of him, and he just pops up. It's like, no big deal. I'm good. Look at this. Oh man, that hurts to watch.
So there was a video they posted on their story from higher up. So you're looking down the track at him when he happens. Yeah. So when he hits the ground, the butter bin is kind of blocking him, so you don't quite see how he makes an impact. You can see he got ejected a little bit here. And we were getting ready for dinner. We were going to dinner for Father's Day, and I audibly shouted in the restaurant, like, "Oh!" Because I told him, I was like, "Listen, man, like, kick ass, but you got a little one on the way."
I know, and you want to talk about, he ain't no spring chicken anymore.
No.
He's getting up there too. So he found stuff. So I'm guessing that was one of those, like, you got to outrace the pain. Like, I got to get up now, because if I don't, it's gonna, like, this is really gonna take its toll, and then you just sort of walk it off afterwards. But I was impressed, man. That was awesome.
And he set the fastest time.
Yeah, well,
they rocked that thing.
Some people may not know, Marston Sawyers used to luge.
Yeah.
So compared to, luge, that was a pretty tame speed at which he was traveling when he went ass over tea kettle.
Silver medalist for the first ever male luge medalist for the United States. A good friend of mine, Chris Masder, used to luge with Marston, and Maz says Marston used to be better than me.
Wow.
So there is an alternate reality where Marston Sawyers is an Olympian in luge, and still, I mean, either way, he still ends up in spandex tight shorts and outfits, but he's just competing in something a little bit different. But and it's funny because you see that fall and you're like, oh, is he all right? His injury that he got from that is the equivalent of the scene in Step Brothers when, like, the bed falls on him and it cuts to it and he only has that small scrape on his elbow. That I talked to him that next day and I was like, dude, how are you feeling? And he goes, I literally have this little scrape on my arm and that's it. I was like, all right.
My favorite, like, Marston, because of this persona, does not, like, people don't know how good of an athlete that guy. Like, he is a hell of a good athlete.
Hell of an athlete.
I will never forget. This is probably 10 years ago when we were all at CrossFit HQ. Marston came down to the gym. I think he had rigs with him. Someone had 225 pounds on the bar. Right, it's 4 blues. And Mars, cold, no warm up, snatched it, full squat, no warm up, just sort of like shook it out a little bit. And I went, oh, damn.
Yeah.
I
don't think his joints or hips can do that anymore.
No, but the fact that anybody can do that. Cool.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 225 was
a big deal.
That was like, that's impressive.
Walking up and full snatching it, like, it's one thing to power snatch, you have raw power, but, like, to pull underneath that and feel comfortable in the shoulders and hips, man, like, mark that down as things I'll never do.
So nice job, Mars.
Heck yeah.
Well done. I wonder why did he draw driver's duty and not Heber?
Probably because of Mars's downhill experience, I
Right.
would say,
I see.
and the fact that he did a lot of work he used to uh, edit and do some work for a motor speedway, so he's been around like
Ah,
speed sports for a lot and
okay.
done some of that stuff. So I think it was probably more like there's no way you're putting Julian Marquez in that thing.
Well,
That thing would be so top heavy, so quick, and just flip right out the gates. And then,
probably be bouncing on the way down too, you know?
and I actually think Heber would be too light.
I do,
Like,
yeah. Mars is a
he-
good choice.
yeah, so
All right.
worked out.
Well, that's going to do it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to our sponsor, Thirdsy, Thirdsy.com. Use the code TEF and you will rest and recover more effectively with their Rest and Recovery Collagen, and you'll save 20% on your purchase. Back next week, we should be fully armed and operational as we are now barreling like Marston Sawyers down the butter bin towards the CrossFit Games, which is it's about a month away now. Like
Yeah, it'll
a
be
week, so.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That is it. Thanks again to Bill Leahy. For Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Take care of each other. Be better. And we'll talk to you guys next time.